Landlord's nightmare, I made him regret. Ignoring my repairs. The place looked decent enough in the pictures. High ceilings, hardwood floors, big windows, maybe a little rough around the edges, but nothing I couldn't handle. I was so ready to be out of my parents' house. I'd landed a good software developer job, saved up a bit, and this was my first real apartment. Mr. Henderson, the landlord, he was a landlord. Overweight, perpetually sweating, and with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He rushed me through the walkthrough, pointing out charming original features that I later realized were just signs of neglect. I should have paid closer attention. The dripping started the day after I moved in. A steady, insistent drip, 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 drip from the bathroom faucet. It was a small thing, but it was driving me crazy. I called Mr. Henderson. "It's just a little drip," he said, his voice thick with impatience. "I'll send Carl up next week to take a look." Next week came and went. The dripping continued. My water bill, usually negligible, started to climb. I called again, and again. Each time, a variation of the same excuse. Carl was busy. Parts were on back order. He'd get to it soon. Weeks turned into a month. The drip, 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 drip was now a constant companion. I started sleeping with earplugs. I even considered buying a new faucet myself, but Liam, my best friend, talked me out of it. "Don't fix his problems for him, Ava," he said, sketching furiously on his tablet. Liam was a graphic designer and full of creative energy, even when it came to landlord-tenant disputes. "Document everything. You have rights." So I started a log. Every call, every email, every promise broken. I noted the date, the time, the content of the conversation. I even estimated the amount of water wasted by the incessant dripping. It was pathetic, but it made me feel like I was doing something. Then came the flickering lights in the kitchen. They'd dim and brighten randomly, like a disco. I reported it to Mr. Henderson. More promises, more delays. "Probably just a loose bulb," he'd said dismissively. I tried changing the bulb. No luck. The drafty window in the living room was next. I could feel the cold air seeping in, even with the window closed. My heating bill was going to be astronomical. Mr. Henderson's excuses were becoming increasingly ridiculous. He blamed me for leaving the lights on too long, for opening the windows too much, for existing, probably. "You know, this building is old," he said once, his tone condescending. "Things break. You can't expect everything to be perfect." I wanted to scream. I wasn't expecting perfection. I was expecting basic maintenance. Liam, seeing my frustration, started suggesting creative solutions. "Pay your rent in pennies," he suggested one evening, grinning mischievously. "Or glitter." Just dump a bag of glitter on his desk. I laughed, but I was also starting to get desperate. I needed to do something. I remembered reading about tenant rights online. I found a local organization and called them. They were incredibly helpful, explaining my rights and outlining the landlord's responsibilities. They advised me to put all repair requests in writing and to keep copies of everything. So I did. Certified mail, return receipt requested. I made it official. That's when I started my campaign of petty, but legal, annoyances. I paid my rent in small denominations, 1s and 5s, forcing Mr. Henderson to spend an inordinate amount of time counting it. I reported a broken stair railing in the building to the city. Small stuff, but it felt good. Then, the leak in the ceiling. It started as a small damp spot after a particularly heavy rain. I called Mr. Henderson immediately. "Probably just condensation," he said. I wouldn't worry about it. I did worry about it. I sent him pictures, documenting the growing stain. I pointed out the potential for mold. He ignored me. The leak got worse. The stain spread. And then, one morning, I saw a small patch of fuzzy black mold. I called Mr. Henderson again, my voice shaking with anger. "This is a health hazard," I yelled. "You need to fix this immediately." He hung up on me. I felt a surge of pure white-hot rage. This wasn't just about a dripping faucet or flickering lights anymore. This was about my health, my safety, my right to live in a habitable environment. I started researching the building's history. I found old city records online, revealing a pattern of similar complaints from previous tenants. Mr. Henderson had been neglecting this building for years. Mrs. Rodriguez, my elderly neighbor across the hall, confided in me about her own issues with Mr. Henderson. A leaky window, a broken oven, promises unfulfilled. He just doesn't care, she said, her voice resigned. He only cares about the money. Carl, the building's maintenance guy, stopped me in the hallway one day. He looked tired and apologetic. "I'm sorry about all this, Ava," he said. "Mr. Henderson, he's always on me about cutting costs. I try to do what I can, but..." I understood. Carl was just caught in the middle. I kept documenting everything. Every phone call, every email, every ignored request. I even started recording my phone calls with Mr. Arndt. Henderson, which was legal in my state as long as I informed him. Then came the storm, a torrential downpour that lasted for hours. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of water pouring from my ceiling. My apartment was flooding. I frantically tried to move my belongings to higher ground. My laptop, my textbooks, my clothes, all soaked. I called Mr. Henderson in a panic. "My apartment is flooding," I screamed. "You need to do something," he answered groggily, clearly annoyed. "What do you want me to do? Stop the rain?" He hung up. I stood there, knee-deep in water, surrounded by my ruined belongings, and I snapped. I wasn't going to take it anymore. The next morning, I contacted the city code inspector and filed a formal complaint. I attached all my documentation, the photos of the mold, the repair requests, the recorded phone calls. Then I waited. The code inspector arrived unannounced a few days later. He spent hours inspecting the building, taking notes and snapping pictures. He found numerous violations: the leaky roof, the mold, the faulty wiring, the broken stair railing. Mr. Henderson was livid. He stormed up to my apartment, his face red with anger. "You did this, didn't you?" he roared. "You're trying to ruin me." I stood my ground. "I'm just asking you to fulfill your responsibilities as a landlord," I said calmly. "You've neglected this building for too long." He threatened to evict me. I calmly presented him with a letter from a lawyer actually drafted by a friend of Liam's, who happened to be a paralegal. The letter outlined my legal rights and demanded immediate repairs. It also mentioned the code violations and the potential fines. Mr. Henderson's face crumpled. He knew he was beat. He hired contractors to fix the roof and address the mold. The apartment building was temporarily disrupted by construction. Dust, noise, the constant presence of workers. It was a nightmare, but I didn't care. I knew it was temporary, and I knew that Mr. Henderson was suffering. I made sure the repairs were done properly, according to code. I checked the contractor's work, asked questions, and documented everything. I was a constant presence, a thorn in Mr. Henderson's side. He received a hefty fine from the city for the code violations. He was forced to pay for the repairs, to compensate me for the damage to my belongings, and to reduce my rent for the period I lived with the unrepaired issues. The repairs were finally completed. My apartment was finally habitable. Mr. Henderson clearly disliked me, but he was now more responsive to tenant complaints, at least outwardly. I continued to live in the apartment, now in a much better condition, with a renewed sense of confidence. I had stood up for myself and held my landlord accountable. One afternoon, I was walking down the hall when I heard Mr. Henderson yelling at Carl. "Another leaky faucet?" he bellowed. "I swear, these tenants are trying to bleed me dry." I smiled. I knew my small victories had made a difference. Maybe, just maybe, other tenants would be empowered to speak up as well. I went back to my apartment, closed the door, and heard faintly the distant drip, 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 daima sauce. But this time, it didn't bother me. I knew eventually it would be fixed. Someone, somewhere, was making their own log.